like to call to order the October 30th, 2024 meeting of the PSTA Board. Commissioner Johnson, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And for our awards and recognition today, I'd like to welcome our two new PSTA board members, both citizen representatives. Please join me in welcoming Commissioner Barbara Hazelden, representing Pinellas County, and Commissioner Max McCann, representing St. Petersburg. Welcome to you both, and thank you for your willingness to serve. All right, and now we have a presentation this morning on PSTA's role in the community's hurricane response. Amanda Baird, PSTA's Director of Marketing and Communications, will review the detailed but great work by PSTA to assist thousands during these recent storms. Good morning, Amanda.
Good morning, Chair and Board. Welcome to our new commissioners. I'm so happy to meet you. My name is Amanda Baird. I am the Director of Communications and Marketing here at PSTA. Today I'm here to talk to you a little bit about PSTA's role in what can only be described as the utter insanity of the last month. Sorry if my slides would work here. Nothing's working. Okay, there we go. So as you all know, PSTA's mission is to safely connect people to places. And these states of emergency are a really critical moment for us to put that mission into action. We, from the very moment a storm is on the horizon, begin preparing even before a state of emergency is declared. And both before, during, and after a storm, PSTA is putting this mission into action. We have the largest fleet of ADA accessible vehicles available in the area. So making sure that people are safely evacuated, hunkered down for the storm, and then able to resume life afterwards is our role in these situations. So just a little bit of a by the numbers. From September 24th, when the shelters opened to Helene, up until October 27th, this last Sunday, was our last day of storm recovery efforts officially. We gave over 600,000 rides to people. About 1,500 of those were specifically requested by the EOC, including paratransit rides, evacuations, relocations of folks who had hunkered down in churches and hospitals, to the shelters, getting folks out of the shelters into more long-term housing. So over 600,000 rides for folks in our county throughout these two storms. I'm just gonna kind of take you very quickly through the before, during, and after of a storm. So in the before phase, PSTA starts by putting our own oxygen mask on first. We are sitting in an evacuation zone as we speak, as is our entire bus fleet. So we start by securing our fleet, relocating to secure high ground when surge levels are appropriate, as well as dispatching our facilities team out into the county to secure our over 800 bus shelters, terminals, transfer points, all of our infrastructure, all of those trash cans throughout the county. Our facilities team is out there making sure that they are secure, ready to go, so that when that storm passes, all we have to do is clean up the shelter and make sure that the roads are safe, so that we can get back on the road. We also, pretty quickly after a state of emergency is declared, begin accepting those evacuation requests from the county for residences, hospitals, senior living facilities, churches. Our largest evacuation this storm was actually a church in Pinellas Park, where over 300 people, many of whom had mobility issues, had hunkered down. They lost power and air conditioning. We were able to get buses there, get all of those folks relocated to a safe shelter. During the storm, we stand at the ready. While we do relocate most of our fleet and encourage our employees to hunker down as safely as possible, they are all standing at the ready to resume operations as soon as it's safe to do so. We do keep a skeleton crew of 25 staff and 20 buses, our oldest diesel buses that are already slated for replacement here on campus, so that when we are ready to go do those high water rescues and evacuations after the storm, we're standing at the ready. Also during the storm, up until just a few hours before landfall, we are doing things with our paratransit customers who need life-sustaining care like kidney dialysis, who might already be in a shelter but still need to get to those appointments. So we had several evacuations and return to shelters for those kidney dialysis patients throughout these two storms. And then after the storms, obviously high water rescues are priority number one. We had a few of those in these last two storms that were just unprecedented. As well as we send we call it the 3 a.m. crew out to begin assessing roads and infrastructure the morning after landfall to make sure that we can get our buses back on the road as quick as it's safe to do so. And throughout all phases, we are constantly communicating with our partners and with our PSTA leadership. We have staff at the EOC 24/7, two specially trained transportation supervisors are there at all times in 12-hour shifts, as well as assisting with evacuations out on the beaches in tandem with the Pinellas County Sheriff, in addition to those other EOC requests. And last but not least, as the communications director, I would be remiss if I did not mention the importance of having that consistent and constant public-facing message. We were pushing out messages as late as 11 p.m. before the storms were hitting, just to make sure folks knew what they needed to do, where they needed to go, if they were still needing assistance after we had suspended operations, who to turn to. I'd like to very quickly share a few of the lessons we learned throughout these storms. First and foremost, that partnership is critical, both with the EOC and our other partners in the county. Some of our most successful evacuations this cycle were in tandem with the Pinellas County Sheriff. We did have some evacuations where we were called to go to an apartment complex and our bus operators were going and knocking on doors, trying to get people like, hey, the bus is here, we gotta go. Obviously, that's much more effective when there is an official presence from a sheriff's deputy rather than a bus driver. So that was one of the lessons we learned. I also want to make sure that our private partners, Jolly Trolley, Transdev, and Bay Area Metro, get their flowers in this moment. They all three assisted with evacuation operations in a way that was remarkable. And PSTA was also able to be a good partner, particularly to Bay Area Metro, in getting those taxis back on the road. When the port had run out of fuel, we were able to make sure that those taxis had fuel so they could get back on the road as well. Again, communication is absolutely key. We, both internal and external, were pushing constant messaging to our team as early as we could, as often as we could, so they knew they had ample time to secure their own homes and families and then report for work so that they could secure our facilities, so they could get folks where they needed to go to ride out the storm safely and still have their own homes to come back to. And last but not least, we learned that the continuity of our existing services is the most effective thing that PSTA can do. Keeping our existing routes on the road, because they are designed to serve most of the major high schools and locations that serve as shelters, either already directly or with just one slight detour. Keeping those buses on the road, getting folks to existing bus stops, and just getting them on the buses that are already running is the most effective and simple way, because we have done such a good job of marketing and messaging that, hey, if you get to this bus stop, a bus will be there as long as you're there before this time. I'd like to show you a brief video that so you can hear directly from some of our operators.
Fox 13's Ariel Placencia joins us live from the PSTA in St. Pete's. Ariel, bus drivers were helping people before, during, and after the storms.
Yeah, they really were, Haley. And new numbers out today show they did over 500,000 rides before and after the hurricanes. That meant bringing people to shelters. In some cases, that meant moving people, hundreds of people, to higher ground after the church and the facilities they were staying in lost AC and power. And then they also drove people who had just been rescued in high water events to a safe place.
It was a good feeling and a sad feeling at the same time.
Jolly is in the trolley's name, but after Hurricanes Helene and Milton, driver Connie Stein admits emotions right now are mixed.
When I start my shift and I'm coming up over that Clearwater Bridge, I'll go on the radio and I tell my coworkers, welcome to another day in paradise. After the hurricanes hit, I didn't say that and I haven't said it since. Because I got to drive the rescue trolley.
The rescue trolley is what the Jolly Trolley became during the hurricanes. Stein says she helped evacuate people from the barrier islands and that she was allowed in some of the most devastated areas where only law enforcement was permitted.
I was driving, like gritting my teeth to keep myself from crying.
Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority bus drivers took Bay Area residents on over 500,000 rides before and after the two hurricanes. That included bringing people to shelters.
You could just tell from the look of their faces that they really, we're at a loss for words. They don't even know if they got a place to come back to.
Driver Christopher Blackshear helped residents in wheelchairs get to safe locations.
The amount of people I seen that were in the shelters, they were in panic mode.
Driver Leon Smiley drove people to shelters too. He told me he also worked with the sheriff's office to evacuate people from St. Pete Beach.
You just don't believe it's going to happen to you.
In some cases, after first responders rescued people in high water events, PSTA bus drivers were responsible for getting those people to a safe place. In total, we're told PSTA drivers help with some 1,300 targeted evacuation rides.
Let them know that, there is hope.
Hope that more joyous and jolly times are on the horizon.
We're Florida strong and we're Jolly Trolley and we're not going to let nothing take our joy away. We can't. We can't. I don't want to cry.
Fox 13's Ariel Placenta.
I'm going to close, if you'll indulge me, a brief personal moment. I'm a resident of Shore Acres. My home flooded during Hurricane Helene, and I lost pretty much all of my possessions. I have two small children, ages 3 and 1. And for me, being part of the emergency response efforts, being able to help get people safely to shelters, and then afterwards being able to go out. These photos are from a supply distribution event with Reach St. Pete that we partnered with, and being able to just talk to my neighbors, tell them that, hey, if you lost your car, if you lost your home, we're here to help you get around. Here's how you can get to your nearest bus stop. Here's how we can help you get back to work, get your kids to school, and be safe. That it's one of the most personally and professionally rewarding things I've been able to do through this process while I am dealing with my own situation at home. So I want to thank PSTA's leadership, Brad, James, Theo, every one of my peers and every one of my leaders and every one of you for allowing me to be here today. So thank you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. And I'm so sorry for what you are personally dealing with. And thank you for using that to energize yourself to help others during a time like this. It can be healing for you as well as for the community. PSTA was just truly heroic through these times, and you're a big part of that. I want to thank everyone in this organization for the roles that you played during these, before, during, and after the storms. It's really one of the things that makes me so proud to serve on this board and to help make decisions that guide you to better work like this. I just can't say enough about the efforts and the successes that you all can mark along the way. It's extremely admirable. So I appreciate all of you. Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I'm very sorry to hear of your loss, and very appreciative of all the work that you did and the entire PSTA team and Brad and everybody for all of the services performed during the hurricanes. And Brad, I also just want to point out specifically that a few days after Helene, I called Brad and asked if we could get something going with the trolley as soon as the sheriff would allow to get access for residents on the beach that didn't have any transportation to, comfort stations and places where there were supplies and aid. And as soon as the sheriff allowed that, that got done. And I just want to thank Brad and his team for that and for all of the services and leadership provided through the storms. It's been a 100-year event, 1,000-year event, call it what you want, but it was epic in the worst way possible, and we did absolutely everything we could, and I just want to appreciate and thank everybody for that. So,
Thank you. Commissioner Latvala.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Amanda, for everything you've done, and I'm sorry what you're dealing with, like thousands of our residents, unfortunately. But I wanted to also thank Brad. Shortly after Helene, CFO Jimmy Petronas did an insurance village in Clearwater and brought in 30 or so insurance carriers, some state agencies. The CFO's office, of course, was there, and numerous folks. And one of the problems was, of course, people at the beach lost their cars. And so I called Brad and asked if the trolley could bring folks to the insurance village that was at the Long Center in Clearwater. And without hesitation, there was a trolley that brought folks every 30 minutes or so all weekend. And dozens of folks, who have lost their life's possessions were able to at least get some temporary comfort and start the insurance process. They were able to talk to FEMA because of that, and I I appreciate Brad, and I just wanted to publicly thank him for doing that.
Thank you. Commissioner Patty Reed.
Hi, thank you. I was just gonna say today, thank you to all the staff, to everybody. Amazing, and people I'm still getting, some emails and that of thank yous and how well everybody did, and, you guys put PSTA first, and even though and thank you to the families of the staff, because without them supporting you guys, none of this would have happened. So your families are very important to us also, so just thank you for making PSTA be number one, as always. And I think Pinellas County came back tenfold strong, and we faced it, and they're still facing it, but without everybody pulling together, we made it through it. So thank you again.
Thank you. Commissioner Eggers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would extend my condolences to you and to others who have lost items during the storm. But and the amazing work that staff does, whether it's at the, any of the hospitals that people were trying to evacuate hospitals, or here, and the stories that you told about staff here and yourself, and just an amazing work everywhere, getting people that it's their mission, really, and so taking care of that almost first. I told people it was nice for those that didn't have issues, that things were okay at the home front, so you could go out and do your work, and yet folks like yourself, or wasn't good at home, still got out and did your work. So thank you from all of us. The only thing else I would say is I had more people tell me in such a positive way about, oh, it's nice to have PSTA doing things. So that expanded presence about kind of what one of our missions is. It's not that day-to-day mission, but right. Yeah. We all kind of do things, and I think people were very, very appreciative of having a robust system in place to do. Maybe they don't appreciate day-to-day about what goes on, but I think after this process, I think there's a greater appreciation for that service. And I just, again, thank you, Brad, and your leadership team, and the board and past boards for getting us to where we are. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Brad, did you want to add anything to this?
Yeah, I'll just add that thank you to all of you for supporting PSTA and what we could do during this storm. I appreciate those of you who called me during either of the hurricanes to identify things where people needed to get somewhere. Yeah, it really is it was just incredible work on down. I want to really just give a shout out to Theo Bakamahala sitting there. He is our Director of Safety and Security, trains all of our drivers, and then is the leader of our efforts during these hurricanes. And he and James Bradford did a fantastic job of, making sure that as Amanda said, making sure our employees were safe first, and Henry and Joe Chaney there did a fantastic job keeping the facilities safe and the buses safe, but then doing whatever we could to help folks out. It seems like these hurricanes have gone on for the entire month, basically, as we all experience, but it's been a big effort. Someday they're gonna be able to go to sleep and get some rest, but I'm really grateful. And to all of the drivers, and like I said, like Amanda said, to our partners too, and at Transdev and Jolly Trolley, PSTA and Transdev and Jolly Trolley have the largest wheelchair accessible fleet in the county. So that comes in handy for nursing homes and medical facilities and senior places that are in the evacuation zone. They just did a fantastic job. Each down to the individual bus drivers all showed how much they really care for this.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the presentation. All right, now it's time for public comment on consent agenda items or items not on the agenda. If any member of the public wishes to speak, please fill out a green card and hand it to the staff at the front table. Speakers will be recognized in the order in which cards are received. Do we have any members of the public today wishing to be heard? Okay. Thank you. We'll close public comment and go on to our consent agenda. Are there any items a board member wishes to pull from the consent agenda?
Move approval. Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Seeing that there's no request for discussion, could we please open the voting system? Everyone will please enter your votes. And we have 10, is that? All right. And the motion passes. Thank you. Now for our committee updates, we will have a track update from Mark O'Hara, who is joining us virtually today. Good morning, Mark.
Hi, good morning, Chair Driscoll and members of the board. Track met virtually on Tuesday, October 22nd. The committee served as a focus group for the agency's new website. We were joined by several representatives from Celtis Ventures Incorporated, who is designing the new website. We enjoyed a robust discussion about what we as riders need from a website, as well as what we would like to have as part of the new site. One of the big key points was improved detour notices or easier schedule downloads. While we were all looking forward to the new website, it is worth noting that track members overall have been very pleased with PSTA.net as it is, especially when compared to websites for other agencies across the nation. Following that, we had a discussion with Darden Rice, Chief Planning and Community Affairs Officer, and she gave us an update on PSTA's community bus plan that is required every 5 years. She detailed the challenges that agency planners face when it comes to this mandated project. Chief among those is deciding between coverage versus frequency, and should the buses be going into neighborhoods versus more frequency on popular routes. We learned that this is not just a PSTA issue and one that is faced by agencies across the country and around the world. Our next meeting will be held in person at PSTA on November 19th at 4 p.m. As always, board members are welcome to attend. The committee would truly appreciate if a member of the board could come and join us and hear directly from riders. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mark? All right, thank you, Mark, and hopefully we'll have a board member attending your next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The Forward Pinellas meeting was canceled this month due to the hurricane, so I don't have a report on that this time around, and there was no Forward Pinellas LCB meeting either. So that closes out our committee updates, and we'll move on to our action items. We have, our first item is a replacement bus purchase. Debbie Laos, PSTA CFO, will go over the recommendation to purchase one additional replacement electric bus to add to the order of buses that we approved in August using the grant funds that were received this summer. Good morning, Debbie.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, everyone. This action item is something that not only helps to save us money, but it also increases our revenue. So in July, PSTA was awarded a very competitive discretionary grant from FTA called the Low No Grant, which was for low or no emission buses. And in August, we came to you, and these are for our replacement buses. In August, we came to you and said, we're going to increase the number of hybrid buses we get. So we're ordering the 12 original electric buses that were part of the grant and increase the amount of hybrid to 9. Now, in doing so, we ended up having leftover grant money on the table. And one of the things I don't like to do is leave grant money on the table. Reason being is these are very competitive grants, and the FTA expects us to use all the money that they've allocated to us. And if I were to return the money in the future, it would be negative to us to be able to get additional grants going forward. We all get performance measures, including the FTA. One of their performance measures is spending the money appropriately, timely, and fully. So we met with FTA, and their recommendation is, let's get another electric bus, and in doing so, it's very complex on how they do their grants. We were actually able, they came back, and we are actually able to save $237,000 of our money as a match. So as we look to do this, by getting one extra bus, no cost to PSTA, 100% federally funded, and we also save our money, which, given the circumstances of the day, is very important to me. So with these replacement buses, not only do we have the revenue to buy them, we're going to save money on maintenance repair, while we continue to have and will continue to have a diversified fleet as far as propulsion power. This extra bus will also save us some fuel. This was discussed at the Finance Committee, which was unanimously recommended. But at this point, speaking of fuel, I want to call my companion up here, Henry, our Director of Maintenance, to talk about the electric bus.
Morning. I'm Henry Lukasik, the Director of Maintenance. At the Finance Committee, Commissioner Eggers brought up a very good question, which he felt that would be appropriate to discuss at the board level, and that was, given the hurricanes and, of course, the news articles and the videos of electric vehicles catching on fire, that if I could give a brief statement on some of the fundamental differences between our buses that we're buying, which are all electric, and perhaps those automobiles. Now, for those that have heard me present before, I like to keep things high level and not get too down into the technical jargon. But as much as I wanted to bring an actual bus battery here, which is very large, that was not feasible. What is feasible is to have someone that you rarely get to meet, but is one of this nation's foremost experts on high voltage propulsion. That is Deputy Director Joe Cheney, who is part of our fleet division. So he will be more than happy to really get into the nuts and bolts of a battery electric bus. And I mean in the nuts and bolts. One thing I want to point out is, as you can see on the screen, these are the new battery buses that we are getting now, and they are from Gillig. I want to point out just a couple things here, is who makes this bus? Gillig, an established coach maker in the United States, 100 years in business. Cummins, also known for diesel engines, 100 years of experience in building buses. And of course, who makes the batteries? Borg-Warner, 100 years in business. So combined, those three providers have 300 years of being in business. When I get into talking about battery packs, okay, on this bus there are 7. But when I throw out some numbers, I'm just going to keep it to a per pack basis. Most of the batteries are on top of the roof. The bus is approximately 11 foot 6 inches tall. There are some batteries that are in where the engine compartment used to be. Those are approximately 6 feet off the ground. And then there is one where the fuel tank used to be, and that is 2 feet off the ground. Here's some of the fundamental, what we're going to call passive safety features of the battery systems on these buses. Number one, it gets to construction of the battery pack. All stainless steel enclosure. When they build these battery packs, each one is vacuum sealed down to 14 inches of mercury, and that's for a reason. It's to make sure that they don't leak water in or stuff out. So much, in fact, that in actuality, these are tested to be submerged to be more than 3 feet underwater. Any water, salt water, regular water, 3 feet underwater, or high pressure sprayed. When we get into the fundamentals of battery cooling, every battery needs to be cooled. Here's some more important fundamental safety features. Active liquid cooling. Keep them cool. But the liquid that's used is non-conductive, can't conduct electricity. Each one of these battery packs is made up of individual cells, lots of individual cells, but they're all separated from each other. But what's important is that they're all surrounded by a special flame retardant epoxy. I think that's what gets into the construction of these battery packs themselves, is that each of the individual cells is surrounded by special epoxy that's flame resistant, but each cell is designed to self-extinguish itself, not travel from cell to cell to cell to cell in a pack. And most importantly, these batteries are designed to be just like fuses or circuit breakers. If something goes wrong, they just shut down. That's just passive safety features. Let's talk about active. That's what's happening right now as we speak, which is these buses are in constant communication with us. I have a whole staff of folks, such as Deputy Director Cheney, who is constantly monitoring the health of these buses in battery systems. So much, in fact, that each battery pack has well over 270 voltage probes and 126 temperature sensors built in. Of course, at the bus level, on the very fancy multifunction displays that a driver gets to see, if anything is detected as an anomaly, it's immediately known to us. That makes it different than the average person who owns an automobile that's an EV, as most of the time they're not actively monitoring these things when they're in service or even when they're parked out in the yard. We are. Maintenance is open 24/7, 365. I want to point out something else, is that hurricanes are nothing new to Florida. High voltage propulsion system buses aren't new to PSTA. For those that may recall, our first hybrids were here in 2009, and our first battery electric buses, 2018. So PSTA's had 15 years of experience operating vehicles that have battery packs on them, whether hybrid or electric. And the combined maintenance experience with high voltage propulsion buses is close to 65 years. So for all those reasons that I mentioned above, I want to acknowledge that I have seen the stories and I have seen the videos. I'm not the world's foremost expert on some of those brand name EVs. I can rattle off about half a dozen. Information is a little difficult to come by on their construction, but I can tell you that with our partners at Gillig, Cummins, and BorgWarner, and of course with PSTA's experience operating vehicles of this type, is that we do feel these buses are very safe for our operations here. And I'll certainly ask you any questions or.
Thank you, thanks to both of you. We've got a few requests to speak. We'll start with Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Henry, thank you very much, as always, for that high-level but yet detailed presentation. Two quick questions. Have we ever had any warranty issues with the battery vacuum seals leaking? No. No? Okay, thank you. All right. And are these buses equipped with fire suppression?
Yes.
And that's an important point, so thank you. Okay. That's all. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Latvala.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for that detailed presentation, and I appreciate Commissioner Eggers' question in the committee. He's a wise man, and primarily that's because of his age. So my question, though, and I have a few, you mentioned the flame retardant epoxy. Is that found in like Teslas or the golf carts or electric scooters? Do you know?
I cannot really comment on automobiles or scooters or cordless drills. Okay. I can only comment on what we know with our buses. I have personally, out of my own curiosity, attempted to find patents and other constructability information for certain automobiles. It's just very difficult to come by.
So, and it was mentioned that we're in a flood zone here. And you mentioned that they're 2 feet from the bus, or where the battery is. When there is a hurricane warning or a big strong storm warning, whatnot, I assume that we take the electric buses somewhere off-site.
So as part of our standard hurricane SOP, if we believe storm inundation from Tampa Bay exceeds what this facility is rated for, we take every bus off campus and store it higher ground.
What about for heavy rainfall? If there's a, flash flood warning, or, because there were parts of Pinellas County that flooded due to rainfall.
If there was if there was a situation where there was going to be anywhere from 12 to just, let's say, 20 inches of rain, we would definitely make that determination at the time. The point is that we won't leave anything to chance. Okay. I, as the Director of Maintenance, will not gamble on our largest pool of assets here at PSTA.
Are you or Mr. Cheney familiar of any instances where an electric bus caught fire anywhere?
There has been some instances. There is a statistic that worldwide, the latest I found is out of 250,000 battery electric buses, and this is as of 2023 worldwide, that there were 27 instances.
Do we know what caused those?
Some of those were due to indirect failures, meaning that there was, without getting too technical, some issues with batteries. Some of this was older technology that was out there. Other stuff was, when I say indirectly, that there may have been a non-electric bus next to an all-electric bus that somehow carried over.
So it was like operator error?
System failure on board.
Okay.
Yes.
Alrighty. But you would know, who the manufacturer was, or?
There are a couple manufacturers that I'm aware of. Again, most of these were outside of the states. I can tell you that Gillig has not experienced an event of this nature.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Hazelton.
Thank you. If I recall what was said correctly, during the presentation earlier, there were diesel buses that were used during the high water events. And I think over the years I've been, watching PSTA, there's been a real changeover, systematic, periodic changeover from diesel buses to hybrid buses and then to electric buses. And I see that we're still buying some hybrid buses, which is good. But apparently, the diesel buses have a place. And I'm wondering if there's plans with, if I understood what was said, that the diesel buses in the high saltwater conditions were still deemed to be the safest way to go, unless I misunderstood that, and that there should be perhaps a plan to keep a certain number of these diesel buses for these types of events. So that would be my comment or question. Thank you.
That is a good comment. We certainly do keep a contingency fleet of buses. We use the oldest ones because when we go into high water situations such as that, we don't actually know what's in the high water. Some of these buses went into stuff with storm debris. But as we conferred together in the maintenance department, we would use any of our buses for any place that we do high water rescues already. We would use any one of them. But your point on keeping a contingency fleet of older buses is well taken.
All right. Anything else?
No, thank you.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Johnson.
Yes, thank you. In my other life, I'm a fire protection contractor, so we were talking all the time about electric vehicles and buses and what we're going to do with codes on that. Sit on a couple of the national code committees. And I'll say that I have a lot more comfort on electrical bus systems or vehicle systems now because there's some additional safety features have been built into them to cut the power to the batteries during charging, when they're charging. And that wasn't the case in older technology. So it sounds like a lot of what you're saying, we have the built-in, from what I understand of the systems, which I'm not I did sleep at a Holiday Inn Express last night, but I am not an expert on electrical bus systems. But, I will say that sounds like what you're talking about has, what our industry is talking about this, what we need to do differently on electrical vehicles and help with this situation, because we are seeing, electrical vehicles at charging stations. Primarily, when they're being plugged in and charged that we get these fires, but that is becoming a big issue because really there's no way to put that fire out, with water. So sounds like we're doing what we need to do there, and the technology's, correct. So thank you.
Thank you.
No question.
Commissioner Eggers.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, just a few things. First of all, thank you for the presentation, and thank you for cutting it in half for the board members. We started getting into all these details, and of course, I asked for it. Thank you. But appreciate the detailed explanation. There's just a lot of noise going around, so it's good to know that. I think it's also important to acknowledge the fact that the diversity of the fleet that we decide on, we'll decide on that, right? What that's going to be, what percentage will be electric, what percentage will be hybrid, what percentage will be diesel, and that's something that just kind of takes its, morphs as we go through the next year and the year after as we have more conversation and discussion. So I'm comfortable with that. It was interesting. Thank you, Commissioner LaValle. He's so much nicer when you agree with him, but when he's not that nice, you're not kidding. I'm kidding. But he did ask the question about the number of buses and the occurrences, and I don't know what it means to be at 0.01% of the buses have had issues. 0.01, not 1%, not 1/10 of a percent, but 100th of a percent. Seems to be a good number. I mean, fires like this obviously are very critical that can create a lot of safety issues, but just a comment on that as it relates to other safety metrics that we use?
So in response to the question, there are a total of 250,000 battery electric buses worldwide. And out of that, there were 27 verifiable instances of a fire.
Yeah.
So that's just saying, out of that total number, it represents 0.01% of the bus population for battery electric buses in service.
So from a safety metric, it sounds really pretty good. I mean, so I mean, again, I don't know what the metrics that we use on other safety mechanisms in the bus systems, but that sounds like a pretty good one, and one to be at least comforted in, as far as having some electric buses in our fleet. So, I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks again, Henry, for the explanation.
I would end by just saying that the offer is always open to any member of the board for a one-on-one tour of an electric bus, and we can certainly spend as much time as you're willing to offer going through the top-down of these new buses, so you're always welcome to attend.
Thank you. Anyone else? Brad?
And to Henry's last point, we are hiring in the maintenance department. If you want a job going up on top of the buses working with Joe. Just one point to Commissioner Hazelton's point, the planning and what we'll recommend to the PSTA board is to always have a diverse fleet of a mix of hybrids and electric buses, at least. So, you know, we've had incidents where there's been a shortage of fuel, and then we've had problems getting diesel fuel. There's obviously problems with, there's challenges or things we have to be very paying attention to and have a plan for with electric vehicles. So I think it's at least a good strategy. Also, the funding priorities in Washington DC change all the time, right? And so it's good for us to be open to having a diverse fleet, a mix of diesel, hybrid, and electric vehicles moving forward. At least that's what would be my recommendation. But like as Commissioner Ecker said, it's really up to the board or the future boards. Yeah.
Well, that brings us back to, this is an action item for the purchase of one electric bus from Gillig Corporation. And doing so, we'll be able to save money as well.
Madam Chair, I make a
Thank you.
motion to approve.
Second. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. We do have a question from Commissioner Walker.
Yep, sorry, this is related to what Brad was just saying. Are there any benchmarks with regards to what a diverse fleet looks like in terms of any sustainability goals that pertain to electric vehicles? Are we tracking towards yeah, go ahead.
Well, we obviously do a lot of benchmarking of ourselves against other systems. Most other systems have a diverse fleet as well. You know, the electric vehicles are the newest sort of technology that's been out there. Although now there's hydrogen buses and other sorts of things that bring their own challenges and benefits too. But
And natural gas too, right?
yes, CNG of course has been around. But yeah, so we do benchmark that. We're kind of right in the mix. What these vehicles, these replacement buses that we are grateful to the feds for the grant. This will lower our fleet age by getting these newer buses into the fleet substantially, which saves, as Debbie said, saves money. And that's the key. We've been sort of aging. Our fleet has been getting older than the benchmarking. So this will put us right back in line.
Good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. We do have a motion and a second to approve this item, and seeing that there's no further requests for discussion, could we open the voting system, please? Oh, I'm sorry. Did we have any public comment on this one? Okay. If everyone could please enter your votes. And the motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
I even had it starred and I still forgot. Next, we have an information item for today regarding the community bus plan. PSTA's Chief of Planning and Community Affairs, Darden Rice, will outline the community bus plan and the process that our board will go through to review the recommendations. Good morning, Darden.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone, Madam Chair, and a special welcome to our new commissioners, Commissioner Hazelden and Commissioner McCann. My name is Darden Rice, and I am the Chief Planning and Community Affairs Officer, and I'm thrilled to present to you this kickoff of our community bus plan. I have presented this so far to the TRAC Committee and the Planning Committee, and this is our presentation on the community bus plan to the board, and you will continue to hear from us over the next several months until you take action in the spring. A special thank you to my colleagues, Planning Manager Jacob Lubutka and Planning Manager Heather Sobush, who have done a real stand-up job to get us where we are now, and you'll continue to hear from Jacob next month as well. So the community bus plan. So as a board and hearing from you, our board, and hearing from our CEO, you have challenged us to make our bus system even better with a cost-neutral approach. So this is a big, exciting opportunity for us. This also happens to be a process that is mandated as a planning product every 5 years. So on the federal level, it's a part of our LRTP, the long-range transportation plan that we align with Forward Pinellas. And it's part of our transit development plan that we submit to FDOT. About a year ago, you approved the consultants, Jarrett Walker and Associates, to work with us on the analysis and mapping and public engagement. But really, the takeaway from this slide and the takeaway from my whole presentation today is this. Every 5 years, PSTA hires consultants. We look through and do an analysis and proposed redesign of our entire fixed route service. And yet, after 40 years plus, why is it that our bus system today, by and large, looks like it did 40 years ago? It's an important question. So let me talk about the way it used to be, and then I'll talk about the way we're going to do it a little bit differently. If you look on the slide to the right, there's a picture, a screenshot from the Tampa Bay Times of the last time we went through the community bus plan. And the person on the left might look vaguely familiar in that picture. It would be me. I came to our final vote on our community bus plan back then, sitting in the same chairs that you all are sitting in now. I came studied and prepared to make some tough decisions. The public hearing was filled with people who weren't really happy with the proposed changes. They wanted to keep things the way they were. They were compelling stories. They were emotional. Some people were a little angry. I ended up being very moved by these stories, and I decided to vote to keep our system the same. And guess what? I wasn't the only one. It was a unanimous decision. So what can we do differently this time so that the public feels more informed and you as board members can feel more prepared and more comfortable with these changes? So I wanted to talk about what's going to be different this time. Different trends are informing our approach now, and we're going to take a different approach with public engagement. So one of the biggest trends that we see now that we haven't seen before is that, and this is across the country, since the pandemic, we have seen that there's latent demand that has built up over the weekend service. So you're going to notice that a lot of our changes to we have a hybrid system of high performance, high ridership, high frequency routes mixed with, supported by, maybe it looks like at first glance lower performing routes, but they're the connective routes that make the whole system work. But we've seen that there is a higher ridership, there's a latent ridership demand on the weekends. So you're going to see us present some of our route changes that will kind of smooth things out. So some of our Monday to Friday routes will now have service consistently through the week on Saturday and Sunday as well. We also are going to do a new approval process. And what that means is we've already done about a year of community outreach. We're going to continue to do community outreach from now until we bring this back to you in March for final approval. But when the board approves the final redesign, we aren't actually going to pull the trigger, if you will, on implementation of the plan until 6 months later, hopefully by October, but certainly by the first quarter of the next year. So that gives us 6 months after the board has voted to continue with in-depth public engagement to make any tweaks that we need to make to the system. The public engagement part is really important. People don't like change, so it's going to be a lot of one-on-one. The staff is awesome. We're going to be out here working with people in the community to explain what the changes mean to the public. The people who ride our buses every day, they have really important information and experiences to relay to us to help us make the bus system better. And of course, your perspective as our board members and elected officials are very important as part of the whole piece of making this work. Also, just we're going to present this as a system. Our system operates as a network, so I think we can agree that it's important to review it as a whole and not string this out over a lot of piecemeal changes and kind of doing it bit by bit, but we'd like to rip the Band-Aid off, if you will, and propose a whole system redesign. So my next slide, and it's the last slide, is our timeline and next steps. Next month, you'll hear from Jacob and our consultants. We are going to publish our data on the website and really present a lot more of the data, the exact route changes we're looking at, and dig into that. We'll be doing this for the planning committee and I believe also to the board. And then from now until February, we're going to have a public hearing here. And we'll continue our public outreach. And then in March, the board will be voting on the final system redesign, our community bus plan redesign. And like I said, we'll continue 6 more months before getting it started officially. I'll say that it's very conventional to offer the public at least a month of zero fares during this transition. Certainly, people are still learning the system and might go to a different stop or catch the wrong bus, so we want to give the public a chance to get used to it too. And that basically concludes my presentation for today, and I'm looking forward to your questions and comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Eggers.
Yeah, thank you, Darden, for that presentation. I always try to think through the models that we develop to kind of come to a place where we can have good dialogue. And so I think your approach, I think there's two things, the way I think about it is kind of that outside in look, so that we're getting all of the trends from around the country, around the state, and around, in this area, the things that you've picked up on, things that are changing. I think it's always good to bring that to the table for discussion. And then more from the inside out, which is doing our one-on-one with organizations, with communities. I remember it was about a month ago, a lady came in here when we were putting our budget together, talking about her community being overlooked in her, I don't remember the exact words she did, but, so I think to get that kind of grassroots general input, but also to make sure these communities know that there's a form online that they can go to say, don't forget our community, we'd like to be engaged in conversation. So it's always good to be able to do as much of that as possible so that we're as proactive as possible instead of reactive and scaring people to death needlessly. So I like the approach. I certainly think that there's a lot for us to absorb locally, but also what some of those trends that we're seeing, the weekend trends versus the weekday trends kind of thing. So appreciate the input. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, and we look forward to hearing more of your feedback through this process.
Thank you. Commissioner Tom Reed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Darden, thank you for the presentation. Very interesting. My question is about the likely free fare for 1 month. You're talking a system-wide free fare?
That's typically what's done. I mean, of course, that would be a decision that the board makes, but that would be my recommendation based on how other transit systems have done it.
And I know you can't get to the details, but ballpark, what kind of impact to revenue are we talking about in that 1 month of free ride system-wide?
I can get that to you. I don't know off the top of my head, but I can get that to you. Okay. But we don't want to be in a situation where our riders are, paying their fare and then, they're not quite comfortable with the new system. Maybe they're there too early or they miss it or, we just want to allow some give and take that month as people are getting used to it.
It just seems like, we're talking a process starting November that goes into 26, talking about 18 months, just doing math in my head, that the public will be informed as to the changes all along, and a month of free fares to me just seems a little bit much.
Point well taken, point really well taken, and the board may decide to shorten that. It's really, that's up to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Darden, thank you very much for the presentation. I'm looking forward to seeing the full plan and kind of diving into that once it's published. Just want to echo what Commissioner Eggers said, and I'm really pleased to see that we're going to focus on communication piece, because it seems like whether it's here or for Pinellas, it just seems like that's where we kind of missed the mark. And it's not because of lack of effort. It just doesn't seem like we're hitting the target. So I'm just really pleased to see that there's an emphasis and a renewed focus on that to make sure that we communicate as effectively as we can with the public. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And to your point, we're required to hold public hearings. People have their right to their 3 minutes to comment. When dealing with changes on this level that are this important, we need to offer more. We need to be there more. We need to give different opportunities, whether it's listening to a presentation, but it's also, us setting tables up outside and working with that person and really hearing what their situation is and where they catch the bus and where they're going, and really listening to them. And I think that's a real big part of it. And, honestly, that's a lot of hard work, but it's totally worth it in the end. And I know that we have the best team possible to go out and do that.
Yep, great. Thank you.
Commissioner Walker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Darden, very nice presentation. My question is related to the zero fare for the course. Can you kind of step me through that process? Because I'm a little bit confused as to when that goes into effect, at which point during this particular study. Is it during the rollout of the new, any potential new routes, or how does that work exactly?
I would suggest that we offer zero fares once we actually switch over to the new system. Okay. Off the top of my head, I think we're going to see enough of our whole system impacted that it would be something that we would institute across the whole system, not just picking out a few routes here and there, which becomes actually difficult to operationalize when people are transferring to different routes.
Okay. At what point do we get to see that the actual proposal on that?
Well, you are, next month, you're going to hear this from, the details from our planning manager, Jacob Labutka, and that will be the first big look at the major changes proposed, with the caveat that we're going to be probably making some changes here and there through the course of action, through our feedback, through community feedback, including feedback from the board.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hazelden.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Darden.
Yeah.
So it's interesting you brought up that you were involved in 19 in the community bus plan, and I was involved in 2014.
I remember.
Yes, I followed it. I couldn't wait. I mean, what a nerd I am. I could not wait for the community bus plan to be published because it was such an interesting process, and I just, I couldn't wait to see the actual results. It was a California firm that did that community bus plan. And some of the suggestions that came out of that plan, which I still have in my possession, is that about 7 routes represented 63% of the ridership in PSTA, and the rest being mainly connector-type routes. And so they suggested smaller buses be used on the connector routes. And that never happened. And as a matter of fact, I was really pushing when Bill Young's bus purchase started to age out. I collected like 500 signatures asking PSTA to go to the smaller buses for the connector routes. And instead, that's when the push towards the electric buses occurred, which were the large electric buses. So I just wanted to comment that maxing everything out to 7 days a week, large buses everywhere, $1.3 million buses versus like $500,000 buses. If we went to 25-foot buses on some of the connector routes, the amount of money that could be saved and put towards, services, that's just kind of what I wanted to bring out from the 2014 bus plan, that a lot of these suggestions from this firm were never put in place, to your point. And so I just wanted to kind of go back in time on that because nothing's really changed except that we just have gone to $1.3 million buses, and I don't think they're appropriate for all of our routes and situations. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Fig Sanders.
Thank you, and good morning, and thank you, Darden, for us hearing the presentation again. But I wanted to comment, and some of the things that I wanted to comment on has already been said, because when we spoke about it previously, I think I was coming on as you were coming off when we were talking about that plan. And I look at the timeline as far as the community outreach is concerned. It's adequate, yes, but no matter how long we do the outreach, you're still going to have that community outcry in regards to changing some of the routes. The one thing that stood out to me when we spoke about it and presented it before, which may be one reason why you changed your mind, is the compelling stories, because it was a culture shock to many of our writers. It wasn't a gradual implementation of change. It was here today, gone tomorrow. It was one of those hard-hitting type of presentations. So I'm hoping in moving forward with that, because you made a great point when you said that we're reviewing it as a whole, because it is a complete network. And I agree that large buses are not the right fit for all of the routes that we're looking for. And to appease some of those that don't like the change, I think gradual movement would be a better plan for us than to, this is what we got, basis, a whole network of change versus filtering in slowly. And that can also help address some of the no fares. Because as we slowly implement the changes, why would there be a need to not charge a fare for a whole month for all routes? Because you're now slowly acclimating those to changes slowly. You're not doing a whole system. So that's just what I remember from the last process that we had going into this, which is why we received so much feedback, is because there was a lot of changes at one time. So again, thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Scott?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And, over the last few years, I have noticed a lot more smaller minibus-style vehicles on certain, I'm not sure necessarily specifically what routes they're on, but we have implemented some smaller vehicles, which I think is a smart move. But I would be really curious to see, once the bus plan is published, how we can better right-size the fleet, the vehicles for the specific routes. I do think that is important, particularly when, we're buying the most expensive electric vehicles we can because of range. We're prioritizing range, more so over service delivery in terms of the passenger side. So I do think as really important, something that we have to evaluate going forward. So I'll be anxious to do that.
Thank you. When you do the community outreach, of course, you've got, writers and you've got, all the places to go. I do wonder, is it in your plan to talk with the actual bus operators? They know the riders best, and they can be very helpful as sort of ambassadors of the plan as it moves forward.
We have. That's an ongoing conversation. Jacob and I just had a meeting with our bus operators last week, and they provide us a lot of great information. And I would say they're probably just as affected by these changes more than anyone I can think of. So.
Right. Okay, thank you. And then as far as the fares, I really don't feel like I can have an opinion on that until we actually see what the plan is and what the game plan is for rolling everything out. So I'll hold off on that consideration for now. And we've got some different groups that we do UPass with. I'm hoping that they're not only engaged, but that what you learn from them regarding this can help us to take a look at the UPass program and how that might be fine-tuned and improved as well.
Absolutely, that's a great idea, because our UPass riders are some of our most engaged.
All right, that's all I had. Oh, Commissioner McCann.
Thank you, and thanks everybody. Honored to be here, and thanks for the presentation, Darden. Quick thoughts on in terms of doing a slower rollout of a system change versus doing a complete redesign. I think the key here, and with a lot of what we're doing, the phrase that jumped out to me was pros and cons, pros and cons, pros and cons. There's pros and cons to each approach. I would err a little bit on the side of doing a system redesign, because I think a lot of those routes are going to be interconnected, and it might just be difficult to make a change to one route that might not make sense unless you're doing the whole thing. I could see it being the kind of thing where you're pulling the thread on the sweater and it all starts to come apart. You just, at a certain point, you need a sweater. But very much open to suggestion on all that. Thanks again.
Thank you. Those, all of your comments so beautifully stated. Thank you.
Brad, did you want to add anything to this one? Are we good?
I think we're good, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for your
When we come back, we will address the issue of the right sizing of the fleet and where smaller vehicles may make more sense in our on-demand areas and suburb-type situations, and looking at the cost feasibility of continuing with other types of vehicles in more high-frequency routes. So thank you very much.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And in November, when the draft plan is published on the PSTA website, per the timeline here, Could we make sure an email goes out to the board with a link to that, just so that we know the moment it goes up, so that we can see it?
We sure can.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right, we'll move on to our reports and correspondence and future meeting subjects. Brad, would you like to give us an update on the reports that are in our packet?
Yeah. Thank you for that good feedback on the bus plan, so stay tuned for that. So in your packet, under reports, is our monthly ridership and other performance statistics report. PSTA had a really strong month of August, which is in your packet, August 2024. And I would attribute our high ridership that month mostly to the UPass agreement we have with Pinellas County Schools. Was off to a strong start at the beginning of school for sure. September, which you don't have in your packet, but I've seen preliminary numbers, maybe it was going quite well until the hurricanes came, and Hurricane Helene was at the end of the month, and then followed by Milton at the beginning of October. We suspended service for some days, and then there was lower ridership. Of course, a lot lower ridership right now on the beach on those routes. I do think we will finish fiscal year 24 by the end of September with a slightly higher ridership in fiscal year 24 than the year before. Just over 10 million total rides. Earlier this month, we collected our second national award from the American Public Transportation Association. We won the Private Sector Collaboration Award this year, and we're very proud of that. We had a little event with our private sector partners, Lochner, the design firm, and Jones Worley, our marketing and branding, yesterday. Lochner had it over at their offices over in Tampa to celebrate that. And Debbie informed me that she received word that we won a GFOA, Government Finance Officers of America Association, award for our financial reporting for fiscal year 23. Good job. Nice. Rachel sent each of you a SurveyMonkey link to provide comments on our PSTA website. As Mark O'Hara mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, the track committee had a focus group from the company that's doing our new website, and they provided a lot of good information about the information about from a rider perspective on how they use this system. But we're very interested also how you all might use the system as a board member, how you access the web, how you access the meetings, the agendas and things like that. No doubt it can be improved from our current website. I've talked to many of you about the challenges we have, and so we're trying to just make it better. So there was a link that she sent out that you can maybe make some comments, especially as a board member, how you think the website could be improved. Welcome to our new interim director of procurement, David Hensler, taking over for Al Burns. And last but not least, please join me a week from Friday for our rescheduled 40th anniversary event. It's now on Friday, November 8th. It is at a restaurant adjacent to the old PSTA bus garage in St. Petersburg, not on top of it. I learned that. So it should be safe to go there. And then also, you're all invited to, on Friday, November 22nd, to our Leadership PSTA graduation luncheon at Featherstown Country Club. That is later in the month. If you come, you'll be asked to give some very inspirational speeches to the graduating class. Board members do that come. So thank you. Happy answering questions.
All right. Any questions for Brad on any of those items? Okay, and do we have any other business to discuss, or does any board member have any other comments for today? All right, well, on that note, I want to thank everyone. Our next meeting. Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Walker, you guys.
Thank Yeah, all this electronic stuff. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so this is probably more informational. Obviously, the great city of Dunedin, we experienced serious damage to our city pier, which is directly impacting the Clearwater agreement, the Clearwater Ferry agreement. Our city manager is going to be contacting you, Brad, just to kind of discuss, but just to tip the scale a little bit here. Obviously, we're going to be very interested in extension of the FDOT grant. So hopefully that's already under consideration and process.
Yes, we've asked FDOT for extension already, and we've also at least tentatively made plans to, understanding the situation in Dunedin, to incrementally start the Clearwater service first, and then Dunedin. But both have been delayed. If we had planned on starting those in November, it's probably going to be a little bit later than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, I hope our new interim purchase director is highly motivated.
Yes.
No, I was sad to see Al Burns go. I thought, in addition to being entertaining, I always thought he did a great job. So I just want to wish him the best in his new role.
Absolutely. All right, our next meeting will be on December 4th, 2024 at 9 a.m. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
How you been?
That's my first meeting.
Oh,